Do you suffer from self-doubt? I think all of us do to some extent. As a physician, as a healthcare provider, and then going into a new field where maybe you're a new entrepreneur. Even someone as old as me suffers from self-doubt. That little voice creeps up in my head that I'm not good enough and I'm not smart enough to do the projects that I do. And that's why I tell my clients and students it's really important to celebrate those wins in your business, no matter how small, because each little win can really quiet down that voice in your head that's saying you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. And that's why it was really important to have my next guest on. She's an OBGYN, and she suffered from imposter syndrome back in medical school. Then she learned how to gain confidence, what she calls her conscious confidence, to overcome this. And now she teaches others how they can do the same. My interview with Dr. Kristin Yates on this episode of Bootstrap MD. Hey guys, this is Dr. Mike Wu Meng. Welcome to another edition of Bootstrap MD. We're continuing our series of really putting a spotlight on physician coaches who are out there and really making a difference. And I'm so excited to have my next guest because she's going to cover what a lot of us have difficulty on. I produced an episode on this probably about a few months ago talking about imposter syndrome. And I feel she is one of the foremost experts on talking about imposter syndrome. Was talking about it even before, I think it became vogue. So I'm really excited to have on the program. Let me do a quick bio for you, Kristin. She is the podcast. She hosts a podcast, Imposter to Unstoppable, which normalizes the experience of imposter syndrome among physicians and actually all humans. She's the co-author of the book, The Chronicles of Women in White Coach 3. She's a board-certified OBGYN. She's got a family, 3 daughters, and a dog. Let's welcome to the program, Dr. Kristin Yates. Kristin, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on to the program. As I mentioned, I've talked about imposter syndrome, and I know you've talked about this and you work with clients, helping them overcome this. We also talk about how to get the confidence of whether or not they want to pursue something outside of medicine. I want to go into all of that, but I first want to know is how did you get started? Everybody has their own origin story on how they became a coach. What was the journey for you?
Yeah, the journey for me was that I graduated from residency back in 2016. And then within my first year, I wanted to leave medicine. And it was, I'm one of the lucky ones. I had a wonderful job. My first job out of residency was fantastic, very supportive partners, certainly a schedule from an OBGYN perspective that was very doable. So it was not any of the systems reasons. And I was in a part of a private practice. So there was none of the systems reasons that was the reason that I wanted to leave medicine. I thought was a unique situation that I had never experienced and no one was really talking about. And it was the reason because of my imposter syndrome or self-doubt. I was so paralyzed by feeling like I really didn't belong, or that I wasn't good enough or smart enough, or that I was going to make a mistake, and that I really didn't know what I was doing. And it was like every single day I was waiting for someone to jump out and yell gotcha, we know you don't belong here, go back to medical school or find another career. And that caused so much anxiety and rumination and overwhelm that I was like, there's no way I can practice medicine like this for the rest of my life. So I tried to Google how to find ways out of medicine and still afford to pay back my debt. And I didn't find many options there at all. So luckily that coincided with the birth of my second daughter. And therefore, I was also at the same time of trying to leave medicine, also trying to lose the baby weight. And I came across coaching in that way, weight loss coaching. And I use the concepts of weight loss coaching through listening to podcasts and reading books and that kind of thing to successfully lose more weight than I ever had before. And then it kind of dawned on me, like, why don't I use these same concepts to not feel like an imposter anymore? And so I did that, and it worked. And after that, and I found fulfillment and satisfaction in my career. I then had this overpowering desire to share it with other young physicians, early career physicians who might be having the same struggle as me. And then now here we are, almost 5 years later.
I'd like to kind of dig deep in this imposter syndrome. Because I've talked about it. I've talked about how it affected myself. I've talked about how it affected other clients, friends, family. I mean, I know people who, according to success, financially multimillionaires, own lots of businesses, and they still suffer from imposter syndrome. Was it for you? Was it something that was internalized? Was it something perhaps maybe in your residency program that maybe there was, people sometimes have great experiences. Some people have really toxic experiences in residency. Is there anything that you can kind of pinpoint it to that made you feel that way?
I think, now looking back, certainly I had always kind of had that thought, those thoughts of I'm not enough. And I remember even like the day I got the call from the medical school I went to, that I got in, and my first thought was they called the wrong person. And and that's like a, prime example of imposter syndrome. And so it continued, of course, through medical school. Whenever I had to work really hard for something or something didn't come naturally to me, instead of just assuming that it was a hard subject, I always made it mean that I wasn't cut out to be a doctor because it didn't come easy enough to me. And that went on in residency, and nothing experience-wise ever happened to me. I think it was all my internal dialogue. And I just didn't know that I didn't have to listen to that voice. I thought that voice was there because I was the one person who really didn't belong. And of course, what I know now is that we all have that voice. It's just like part of the human brain conditioning. And I was just making that the driver in my life instead of kind of like the passenger in the back seat that needs to be told to quiet down.
Yeah. So another aspect of imposter syndrome too is, we have, with the group that we have with the physician coaches, and we have physicians who now want to become coaches. And some of these physicians have done tremendous things. And then when it comes time to like go outside of medicine, they put on this imposter syndrome. Well, I can't go out there. I can't, I can't do this, or I can't do that. Or in some aspects, they'll like try to find ways to maybe validate it. Like, for example, I can't go into business unless I get an MBA. And I do not necessarily agree that you need to have an MBA on there. And then they end up spending tens of thousands of dollars, but just another way of either quote validating what they're doing either to themselves or to society. I know that you're pretty familiar with the physician coaching kind of arena. Have you seen issues with that with physicians who are going into other things and either mentoring or coaching in other activities?
Yeah, I see that all the time. And I think that, part of it is how we're trained. Like you said, like as physicians, we're very used to industry that gives you certifications and certificates and diplomas and to prove your value. And I think it's hard for us once we're in this world to kind of take a step out and realize that that's not how life is in general. And for many other things, your personal and lived experience is enough most of the time to help someone else, which is usually why physicians want to do something else. They're not getting enough fulfillment or feeling like they're helping enough people in just their medical career alone. And of course, there's some financial incentive as well, but typically for physicians, they're healers and they want to heal people and they want to heal themselves. And I think that the only thing we know is you need a certificate and you need to prove your worth. You need to prove that you're good enough or smart enough to do it. And I think that the power of being in a room with people who have done it is the recognition that there's about 1 million different ways to do any one thing. unlike medicine. It's very, go to medical school, take these tests, go to residency. There's one path to becoming a doctor, but there's not many other things in this world that are like that.
Remember when you could practice medicine on your own terms? What if you could take control of your physician career, make more money while working smarter, not harder? Pick up your copy of The Positioned Physician. Earn more, work smart, and love medicine again. Now updated for 2021, The Positioned Physician details one doctor's journey from burnt-out employee to successful entrepreneur. Whether you are in residency, in mid-career, or close to retirement, after reading The Positioned Physician, you'll gain the knowledge that can strategically impact your doctor life. The Positioned Physician, now available on Amazon Kindle and paperback.
So talk about, you mentioned before we got on the call about instilling confidence, and you called it conscious confidence. Can you tell us more exactly what you mean?
Yeah, I think that through my journey, and it's an ongoing process of becoming more confident in who I am, and as a doctor and a mother and a partner and all of these things, I've tried on a lot of different ways to do it. Fake it till you make it, or write a list of all the things you've done well and all the other things that you do when you're trying to be confident. And those all worked to some degree temporarily for me, but the only thing that ever worked with any lasting benefit was this idea of coming at confidence through consciousness, or self-actualization is another way to look at it. So it's first and foremost the awareness of who you truly are, who we all truly are at our core. And when you come from that place of I'm here for a reason and I'm special and no one else can do my life like I can, then it gives me and the women that I work with a whole sense of there's something really special and unique about me. And instead of trying to shy away from that, I want to lean into that uniqueness and allow it all in. And I think along with that, and within this, realm of I want to be more conscious in my life, is a sense of non-judgment and like curiosity over ourselves and our pasts and our thoughts, which I think is very powerful because physicians love to judge ourselves very harshly.
I love what you said about curiosity, because I think a lot of, what we do as coaches is, we obviously want to help people, but I think a lot of it drives in just being curious. I know you have your own podcast. I have my own podcast as well. And one of the reasons why I did it is because I'm just curious about what other people are doing. And now I have a vehicle that allows me to do that. What has been your experience, using curiosity to kind of drive yourself or your business?
Yeah, I think in my physician realm, it has really helped me to actually become more fulfilled and comfortable as a doctor. I think that I used to get really defensive because of my lack of confidence. And I would assume that my patients or colleagues were judging me whenever they would say anything that might trigger a limiting belief I had about myself, like they're too young, or how long have you been a resident? How long have you been a doctor for? And those kinds of questions. And when I was able to come to my job with curiosity, it wasn't about me anymore. It was more about, this is fascinating. Like, why is this patient? What's the fear there? Or why is my colleague asking about my management? Like, where's the disconnect? So it really offered me the ability to kind of take my ego out of it, which I think was very, very powerful experience for me and actually made me enjoy my career more. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I'm going to keep going on.
In the realm, like curiosity with myself, it's been really helpful because I, of course, have inclinations most days to judge myself for actions, anything from a parenting choice or, eating all the dessert or all the different things. I'm not working out that day. There's a million reasons why I would judge myself. And I think making the decision to choose curiosity has allowed love in much more frequently.
I like that. I like that. I want to talk about what we initially talked about, but with imposter syndrome, because it's a bigger deal than most people think. And I think like if society was to look at this and to listen, it's like doctors have problems with imposter syndrome. How could that be possible? Because they have degrees, it tells them what they're doing. They spent all this money. Is there anything that you've seen with physicians and imposter syndrome specifically that maybe there's still a big issue with it, or is it just kind of it's just par for the course, and we see that in all different types of occupations?
Yeah, I think, as we had talked about, it's a normal part of the human brain. But I think the issue with physicians is that there are certainly people who are at risk of feeling the pressure of imposter syndrome more than others. And those are people who are perfectionists, who are among other high achievers, who feel like they can't have a growth mindset. They have more of a fixed mindset. So all of these attributes are really common in physicians. We have to work really hard. We can't ever fail, or someone's life is on the line. We are certainly perfectionists. So we have all of these people who have high risk for suffering from the effects of imposter syndrome, meaning we're allowing it to be the driver in our life. And then we're put in a circumstance like medical school and residency where we really are being judged for those things. Like we're getting grades, we're being told we're not good enough, we're getting feedback like your surgical skills weren't enough, or excuse me, or you're put on probation for something, or you fail your boards. And so there is this emphasis on all these external factors that kind of ignite the fuel of imposter syndrome. And then we become attendings, and we're supposed to do things on our own. And we've been trained to search for an external validation for 15 years. And we're wondering why we all struggle.
I think too is, as you mentioned, we're often the decision maker. And, not only clinical, if you own your own practice, you've got business questions you have to deal with, employee questions, but just in terms of clinical, for sure. But then also just because we live in a litigious society, and every decision, right or wrong, depending on what happens that day, you could get sued for that. And I think there's always that kind of second guessing, what we see. Also, I think too is just the way society views physicians, and what they see, and just when I'm looking on like the news and they have a doctor on board, and he's very professional, or she's very, very, very professional, but there's really no like personality for the most part that you see here. What are your opinions on those things that we talked about, whether it's being sued or the way that society portrays us?
Yeah, I think those are huge factors. As far as the lawsuits go, I'm an OBGYN, so I get it. That's a huge deal, right? And I think for what I know about my own experience and from working with other physicians is that I think certainly there's a financial concern about, what malpractice costs and that kind of thing about lawsuits. But I think it's really more about what a doctor would make a lawsuit mean about them. It's never about, oh, I'm scared I'm going to lose my house. These things certainly could happen in extreme cases, but almost always it's really, if I get sued or I've been sued and then a physician makes it mean that they're not a good enough physician. And if we have a limiting belief of I'm not a good enough physician, and then you get sued, it proves that. And that is devastating. It's totally devastating. So I think if you're coming from a place of no matter what happens, I know that I did my best, a lawsuit still sucks and it's stressful, but it's not but it doesn't confirm anything about your value as a physician or a human being. And I think that's a place that physicians must get to if they have any chance in having a career in medicine that doesn't ruin them. And with regard to how society views physicians, I think that's huge. And I think that this whole idea of what does professionalism mean? Even in the last year or so, there's been a lot of social media pushes against that. because I think it's hurting physicians and society in general, because if physicians have to pretend to not be human, then we feel like we can't really own our emotions or our own crises in our life. And we kind of have to put that in a box, which is not healthy mentally or physically. But then I think it's harder for patients to relate to us if they don't see us as another person. And I have made a commitment actually to wear my humanness more openly with patients. And I think that there's a very professional way to do that and not cross lines, but also, put yourself back on their level. And I think for many patients, that's really what they need to have. They don't need another person on a pedestal telling them what's right and wrong for them. They need someone who has, enough knowledge to help them, but also knows that they're in charge of their own future.
As a doctor, I wasn't used to asking for help, especially when it came to subjects outside of medicine. But then I found physiciancoaches.com. In an instant, I found hundreds of experts to help me in all aspects of life. On areas I was afraid to ask: dealing with burnout, starting a side gig, money management, even help with my marriage. And the best part? Nearly all experts are physicians themselves. After reading their profile and a quick chat, I knew I found the right mentor for me. At physiciancoaches.com, help from professional colleagues is just a click away.
So it sounds like, just from your own personal exploration, not only in getting and coaching others, it's helped your own practice. It's helped you with your patients. Can you speak to that?
100%. It has helped me. And I think that so much of it had to do with this thought that my identity was that I'm a physician. And that never really felt super comfortable to me for a variety of reasons. And then once I realized that it's because I'm so much more than that, and I just, every human being is so much more than their career. But I think for physicians in particular, it's really hard to separate that identity from our own self, because we have been working at it for so long. We worked at becoming a physician for over a decade. Sometimes we delayed our having a family or relationships, or we missed huge monumentous milestones in people's lives to pursue this identity of a physician. And then, as you mentioned, society views us as a certain way. So then we feel like that's who we are. We are a physician. And I think that the one most influential change in my life has been realizing that I'm a human being and I do physician work. I am not a doctor. I doctor as a career, but making that distinction, which seems very subtle, but fundamentally has changed how I work and see patients and view anything that ever happens to me at work.
I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I've seen in terms of the way that physicians are coming out of school. As someone who may be a little bit older than you, medicine, when I was in going through medical school and residency, it's a calling. That's the way they viewed it. It was a calling. Mm-hmm. You would either go into private practice or you would work in some type of big health establishment like a Kaiser or one of those for the rest of your life. And anything that was associated with being a physician, well, that's what you had to do. Whether that means answering those phone calls, during your weekend time, following up with those patients. You may not get paid for it, but that's what you had to do. Mm-hmm. And now what I see now is what you say. You're doing physician work, but you're a human first. And I think that's a good thing. But there's others, who maybe kind of old school, like, in my area or maybe even younger, still feels that, physician is a calling. What do you say to those people who say, this is what you have to do? This is your life's work.
Yeah, I come across that all the time. And I think that that's fine for anyone to think and view their life anyway. And I don't want to convince anyone to change their mind. The question that I pose and that I pose to myself is, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Or are you uncomfortable with that? Are you resentful? And are you angry? Because if you are, then let's examine why. And maybe it's because there's no boundaries, or maybe it's because you think that because you have the title of doctor, you have to pour out your whole entire spirit and energy for your patients. And I think that mentality for most people is doing a disservice to the profession. And certainly there are people who it's a calling for them and they can't imagine doing anything else, and it's making them happy and it fulfilled. That person should keep doing exactly as they're doing. But I think that if you're not enjoying your career and finding satisfaction and fulfillment from it, and that doesn't mean that there are not hard days, because of course there are, but if you have any sign of resentment or anger or irritability or overwhelm, then I would really question, maybe that's not how you're supposed to be a physician. Maybe you were called to be a physician, but in a way that speaks to you and in the way that is going to be sustainable for you.
I want to talk about when you first decided to become a coach and open your doors. Mm-hmm. What was that conversation like for you, and to yourself, to your family? When did you kind of decide this is a path that I want to go for my life?
Yeah, it was probably a little over a year ago. For a couple of years, I was saying repeatedly that I was not going to become a coach, that I just wanted to teach these concepts to people. And then it was really funny. The universe kind of spoke it to me. I met with a variety of people and they all basically asked me, like, right in a row, when are you becoming a coach? When are you becoming a coach? And I was like, interesting that's coming up so much for me. And then I asked why I wasn't becoming a coach. And I realized that it was because I was scared about what other people would think about me. And I said, okay, well, that's not a good reason to do anything or not do anything. And I asked myself some better questions, like, why would this be something that I would want to do? Or how could it help me grow, and those kinds of things. And so about a year ago, I decided to get coach certification. But as you know, it's not a field that you have to be certified in. So I had been coaching people all along, and I continued to, I called myself a coach, and then I got certified. And now I'm really kind of leaning into that. Like, I'm a physician. I'm a physician and a coach. And before it was kind of like I was a physician and then in parentheses, coach later on down the road. Right. And I think it was really a decision. It was just a decision that I made. Like, I'm going to be a coach. I know I can help at least one other person. And I think that as easy as that sounds, like it sounds like, oh, that's simple to just decide. It is a simple thing, but then sticking with it and allowing the terror to come in and allowing all the opinions and the judgments to come in is what makes it hard. And
did they come in, or is it something that you just assumed that they would come in, or imagine?
Yeah.
Or maybe there was, I don't know if your patients had found out, or colleagues, or what? How did that work?
Yeah. For the most part, there wasn't a lot of judgment. And I mean, of course, I'm sure people judge me, right? Like on social media, I don't know what they think. I don't know what strangers think about me. There are certainly people in my inner circle even who think it's weird, or who think that, like, why are you, that's a lot of work that you're doing on top of your full-time job. But I just think it's because it's unfamiliar to people. People are very used to a conventional way of life where you have a job and you do that until you retire, and then you retire and then you die. Right. And I think that I don't have any interest in that kind of trajectory. So I decided to shake things up a bit.
So you are working as a full-time OBGYN?
Yes.
In addition to your coach. Okay. And how long do you think you'll be able to keep that going? Or is it inevitable? Have you gotten to the point where you're able to compartmentalize your two different businesses?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know yet. I think I am anticipating that it might not be forever. But I don't know exactly how it will change. I think that right now I'm in a private practice, but we are being acquired by a hospital system. And I don't know if that might make a decision for me. I don't know if they'll allow me to practice medicine the way that I want to practice medicine. So I think that right now I'm just kind of allowing the universe to show me the next step, which I've never done before. I've always kind of had to know, like, in the next every step of the way. But I think what I'm being called to do right now is just kind of have an open mind and allow the different possibilities. But right now, working as a full-time physician is allowing me opportunities to serve patients in a way that I won't be able to, maybe I won't be able to do that forever. So I'm enjoying it now.
Now, people who listen on the podcast, we have a lot of people who are coaches. We also have some physicians who want to become coaches. What have you learned, or what are some things that you've learned now that you've been a coach? You said that it's been close to a year or over a year, that you didn't know, that you're either surprised that this came about, that you didn't realize beforehand?
I think that I was surprised about how much my own journey had everything to do with what's happening outside of me. Like, I was really, and what I mean by that is, for me, at first I was really focused on the marketing and the, getting in the email list and all of the things that you have to do in order to build a business. But I was focusing on that a little bit too much, I think, because it's fun and it's new and it's exciting. But I got to a point where it was just, hustle so much. And then I just realized that I was just replacing my doctor hustle for another kind of hustle. And I didn't want to live like that. So I think from that lesson of, this is what I thought I had to do, I really just decided to give myself a permission slip to live life how I wanted to live. And even if it didn't look like it should, or like people maybe from the outside would like me to live my life, the moment I gave myself that permission was when everything changed in my business. And that is something that I'm continuing to do every day.
I love that. A lot of it is this kind of 80-20 rule. And then, a lot of things that we see, like in marketing and things that we should be doing, we can always do more, right? But what happens if it never ends, you're just kind of on a treadmill, and then you realize, okay, I did all this work and I'm not really seeing much from it. So maybe I should go to something different. Yeah. But for many of us, we don't know what that is, or we're not able to. And I love that how you said you gave yourself permission, to just kind of, let's see how this goes. Let's see where this goes, and whatever the universe or whatever you want to call it, brings to me, I think is really, really fascinating. So tell us, you've got some things that you're doing. One is a masterclass about the 3 things. Well, you tell them. It's about confidence in physicians. Tell them about that. Yeah.
So I have a free masterclass that is available for you to watch whenever you want. And it's the 3 things confident doctors never do. And I share some of the pearls that I learned that my clients have benefited from. And you can find that at kristinyatesdo.com/masterclass. And then I always have a course right now on conscious confidence, where I basically teach the fundamentals of confidence and self-coaching. And that's available all the time as well.
And so tell us who's like the right person for that course.
That person is someone who has the awareness that something has to change. Like, they're feeling either that stuck feeling, or you have that now what feeling, and you want to be more confident at work, and you're getting in your own way, but you don't really know how to get out of your own way. This course is going to meet you and give you the next steps. Wonderful. Wonderful. And again, your website? KristinYatesDO.com. KristinYatesDO.com. That's KRISTIN. Yes. There's a lot of Kristins, and I've seen spelled every single way. Kristin, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Any last minute thoughts before we end our call today? No, I think it was wonderful chatting with you. We touched on a lot of my favorite topics, and I will just grant an overarching permission slip to everyone listening, because I do understand that we are constantly searching for that permission outside of ourselves. So this is like the fairy wand of permission going over everybody.
I love it. We all need permission slips.
Yes.
Every now and then. Dr. Kristin Yates, thank you for joining us on the call. And thanks for you guys. If you're ever in a situation where you've got that imposter syndrome, things aren't going, you can't just ruminate about it and feel sorry for yourselves. Kristin did felt like she needed to make a change in her life, and she just went with it. And it's all about keep moving forward. Hey, Dr. Mike here. I hope you're inspired by that interview. And if you aspire to become a coach or consultant yourself, I highly encourage you to check out my free on-demand masterclass, How to Become a Highly Paid In-Demand Physician Consultant or Coach. On the masterclass, I'll not only show you my story of how I've become a physician consultant for over 15 years, I'll also show you real-life case studies of physicians who are actively doing this now, either adding or replacing their current income as a doctor. To register for the masterclass, we'll leave a link in the show notes. I look forward to sharing you this important information today.